Have you ever wondered why the same painful patterns seem to find you, no matter how you try to outrun them? That specific flavor of heartbreak, the familiar sting of neglect, the ghost of an old abandonment that seems to haunt every new connection. This is not a coincidence of fate, nor a curse upon your love life. This is an invitation from the deepest, most obscured part of your own psyche, your shadow. Carl Jung taught us that the shadow is the repository of all we have been taught to disown. Our raw power, our primal anger, our deepest needs, our wildest desires, everything deemed too much or not enough by the world outside. And until you befriend this hidden self, you will forever be meeting it in the strangers you love, projecting your own unconscious material onto the empty screen of another person's potential. Welcome to a journey of profound reclamation. Welcome to the library of thoughts. The woman who continually finds herself drawn to emotionally unavailable partners is not simply making poor choices. She is dancing with a phantom, a reflection of her own disowned need for emotional independence. The man who cannot meet her depth is a perfect mirror, showing her the parts of herself she has been taught to suppress, perhaps her own assertiveness, her own boundaries, her own capacity to be self-contained and whole without his validation. He becomes the carrier of her projection, acting out the very drama her soul unconsciously needs to see to finally awaken. The intense chemistry, the addictive push and pull, is not a sign of a great love, but a sign of a great wound seeking recognition. It is the magnetic pull of the unconscious, drawing together two people whose shadows recognize each other, not for healing, but for a reenactment of old, familiar pains. This dynamic is a complex tapestry woven from the threads of childhood adaptations, where you learned which parts of you were acceptable and which must be hidden away to secure love and safety. That hidden self did not vanish. It went underground, festering, growing powerful in the dark, and it now dictates your attractions from its shadowy throne. This unconscious attraction is a form of haunting, where the ghosts of your unmet needs and unexpressed truths puppeteer your present reality. You believe you are choosing a partner, but in truth, you are seeking an archaeologist, someone to carefully unearth the buried artifacts of your soul that you yourself are afraid to touch. Yet the other is never an archaeologist. They are merely another ruin, equally populated by their own specters, hoping you will excavate them. So the relationship becomes a dual excavation site, with two terrified children holding trowels, each desperately digging at the other's walls, hoping to find a treasure that can only be found within their own territory. This is the cruel irony of projection. You hand over the map to your own inner gold and then beg a lost traveler to lead you to it. You outsource your wholeness. You grant a temporary resident the title of permanent landlord in the inner sanctum of your self-worth, and then you are shattered when he proves to be a poor custodian of a home he never understood, and you never taught him how to care for. The Stoics, from Seneca to Marcus Aurelius, spoke of the fundamental dichotomy of control, that which is within our power and that which is not. Your partner's behavior, his capacity, his emotional availability. These are externals, firmly in the realm of what you cannot command. The only thing that is truly, irrevocably yours is your inner citadel, your response, your perception, and the arduous, noble work of turning inward to meet the very parts of yourself you are demanding he redeem. The moment you withdraw this projection, the entire illusory dynamic begins to crumble. It is a spiritual and psychological earthquake, terrifying in its deconstruction, yet necessary for the foundation of something authentic to be laid. The man who once seemed so magnetically intriguing now appears as he is, a man, flawed and human, carrying his own burdens, fighting his own battles, utterly incapable of completing you because he was never meant to. This disillusionment is not a failure of the relationship. It is its greatest potential success. It is the shattering of the fantasy that has imprisoned you both. This is where the real work of individuation begins, the Jungian process of becoming the undivided, self-defined individual you are destined to be. It requires a courageous descent, a nekya, into the underworld of your own psyche to meet your shadow, not as an enemy, but as a lost fragment of your own power. You must sit with the abandoned child who learned to equate love with anxiety. You must listen to the righteous anger you smoothed over to keep the peace. You must embrace the sensual, primal woman you locked away for fear of being called too much. This is not a task for the faint of heart. It demands the Stoic resolve of Epictetus, who reminded us that no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me you desire a fig, I answer you that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. You are that fig. You must allow yourself the time to ripen in the dark, away from the desperate need for external sunlight to validate your existence. This ripening is an act of supreme rebellion against a world that profits from your self-doubt. It is a quiet, relentless revolution fought in the silent chambers of your own heart. You begin to question the very architecture of your desires. That aching pull towards the unpredictable, the intermittent reinforcement of a partner who is hot and cold, it begins to lose its addictive charge. You start to see it for what it is, a neurological trick, a replay of an old familiar tune that feels like home, not because it is joyful, but because it is known. The chaos you mistook for passion was merely your nervous system being triggered into a state of hyper-awareness, a survival mechanism masquerading as romance. True passion is not born from anxiety. It is born from the profound safety to be fully, utterly yourself without fear of annihilation. It is the quiet confidence that allows for vulnerability without the terror of being consumed. As you turn inward, you cease seeking a hero and instead become your own sanctuary. You build an inner stability so potent that the emotional unavailability of another no longer feels like a personal failure or a puzzle you must solve, but simply a statement of fact, a data point about his capacity, which has nothing to do with your worth. You stop trying to decode his mixed signals and begin to listen to the clear, unwavering signal of your own intuition, a voice long drowned out by the noise of yearning. And what of this intuition? It is the language of the soul, the direct line to the self that Jung spoke of, the central archetype of wholeness that guides the process of individuation. For too long, you may have allowed it to be silenced by the roaring opinions of the collective, the shoulds and musts that plaster over your unique truth. Reconnecting with it is like learning a forgotten native tongue. At first, the words are clumsy, the meanings obscure. You must sit in the stillness and listen for its whispers beneath the clamor of fear and conditioning. It speaks not in logical arguments, but in gut feelings, in somatic sensations, in dreams that arrive like cryptic ambassadors from the unconscious. It is the deep knowing that tells you when a boundary has been crossed long before your mind can articulate it. It is the visceral recoil from something that looks perfect on paper, but feels wrong in your bones. This inner compass does not guide you toward a life free of pain, but toward a life that is authentically yours, a life aligned with your deepest values, not the values you were handed. It is the antithesis of the people-pleasing, shape-shifting ego that contorts itself to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold it. To honor this intuition is to enact a profound form of self-respect. It is to declare that your inner reality is the ultimate authority on your life, and that any external source that contradicts it must be met not with compliance, but with discerning inquiry. This discerning inquiry is the bedrock of emotional sovereignty. It is the practiced pause between a trigger and your reaction, the sacred space where you reclaim your power to choose. The Stoics understood this space as the very seat of our freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote of the power of the mind to transform any obstacle into fuel, to not be harmed by the external world unless we ourselves consent to be harmed. In the context of relationship dynamics, this translates to a radical shift. His withdrawal is no longer a verdict on your worth, but simply his behavior. His criticism is no longer a truth to be ingested, but merely his opinion. His inability to love you in the way you desire is not a signal to contort yourself into something more lovable, but a clear indication of his current limitations. You begin to hold the mirror upright, facing yourself. You ask not why doesn't he want me, but why did I choose someone who cannot meet my core needs? This question is not a spiral into self-blame, but a gateway to profound self-revelation. It leads you back to the original wound, the primordial moment where you learned that love was conditional, that you had to earn it, that you were inherently too much or not enough. By facing this wound with compassionate curiosity, you drain the charge from the pattern. You see the man not as a god or a demon, but as a fellow wounded human, perfectly reflecting the very thing you have yet to make peace with in yourself. Making peace with this reflection is the essence of shadow integration. It is the alchemical process of taking the lead of your perceived flaws, your neediness, your jealousy, your rage, and transmuting it into the gold of self-awareness and authentic power. That so-called neediness is, in its pure form, a profound and valid human need for secure attachment, distorted by fear into a clinging desperation. That jealousy is a boundary that feels violated, a voice that fears it is not enough, twisted into a possessive control. That rage is a righteous no against injustice, a passion for integrity, suppressed until it erupts as destructive fury. Your shadow holds these energies not as sins, but as strengths, waiting to be redeemed and redirected. To integrate your shadow is to stop trying to be a good woman, as defined by an external patriarchy that demands placid agreeability, and to instead become a whole woman, capable of a full spectrum of human emotion, able to wield her dark and light with conscious intention. This is the sacred marriage within, the conjunctio oppositorum that Jung identified as the goal of individuation. It is the point where the persona, the mask you show the world, and the shadow shake hands, and in doing so you become undeniably, unapologetically real, no longer split between what you are and what you think you should be. You generate a gravitational field of authenticity that repels those who seek a fantasy and attracts those who value truth. This gravitational field of authenticity is your new emotional home, a sanctuary built not from the borrowed bricks of others' approval, but from the unshakable foundation of self-knowledge. Within these walls, the old aches for validation begin to quiet. The compulsive checking of your phone, the parsing of texts for hidden meaning, the endless mental rehearsals of conversations. These are the death throes of an outdated paradigm, the final whispers of an ego that believed its worth was transactional. You start to understand that the highest form of love you can offer another is not your dependence, but your wholeness. A whole person engages from a place of desire, not lack, of choice, not fear. They do not love to be filled up, but to share the overflow of their own abundance. This is the core of Stoic virtue. To find your good in your own character, your own intentions, your own actions, the only things truly within your control. When you anchor your worth here, in this internal citadel, the storms of external circumstance cannot shake you. A man's attention becomes a pleasant addition, like sunlight on an already beautiful day, rather than the sole source of light you need to survive a perpetual winter. You no longer fear his absence, because you have become exquisitely present to yourself. His departure, should it come, is grieved not as an apocalypse, but as the closing of a chapter, a sadness that does not threaten the core of your being because your being is no longer held in his hands. From this place of unassailable inner peace, your entire mode of relating undergoes a metamorphosis. You no longer approach potential partners as a job interview for the position of your worth, but as a conscious explorer seeking a fellow traveler whose path aligns with your own. The questions change from, does he like me, to do I like him? Does his presence add to my peace? Do his values resonate with my soul's truth? This is the shift from chasing to choosing. Chasing is born from a poverty consciousness, a frantic scramble to acquire an external source to quench an internal thirst. Choosing is an act of a sovereign queen surveying her kingdom from a place of plenty, discerning what and who is in alignment with her vision for her realm. It is a calm, deliberate energy that is infinitely more attractive than the anxious vibration of pursuit. It communicates a deep-seated self-respect that commands respect in return. You understand that a true partner is not someone who completes you, but someone who courageously respects your completeness and challenges you to grow from a place of love, not lack. They are a mirror, yes, but a clean one, reflecting not your unconscious wounds, but your conscious evolution, your strength, your light. They see the woman you have worked so hard to become, and their presence is a celebration of that journey, not a rescue mission from it. This celebration is the birthright of the woman who has dared to meet her shadow. She walks through the world not with the arrogance of one who has conquered all her demons, but with the humble confidence of one who knows their names and has learned their language. She has made peace with the darkness within, and thus she is no longer terrified of the darkness without. Her relationships are no longer haunted by the ghosts of past betrayals or the anxious specter of future abandonments. She is fully here, in the potent now, capable of engaging with a profound openness because she knows her center is unshakable. She loves from a place of deep inner resource, not from a bottomless need. This is the ultimate emancipation. The realization that your security was never, and could never be, outsourced. It was always waiting for you in the depths of your own being, in the courageous heart that was willing to turn toward the very things it feared most and whisper, I see you. You are a part of me, and I will no longer exile you. In that act of radical self-acceptance, the projections dissolve. The mirrors clear. You are finally, fully home. You are no longer a seeker of love, but a living embodiment of it. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.